Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. In today's video, I have two separate guests on the show, and our first guest talks about a Sasquatch encounter he had in the Grand Mesa National Forest in Colorado, and we've had some reports from this area in the past. Alright, our second guest talks about finding some Sasquatch tracks in New Brunswick, Canada, and I think he reported it to the BFRO, but nonetheless, let's get straight into it, guys.
At their camper, and that's when they got the heck out of there. One other story I read was a Bigfoot that ran across the highway there right in front of somebody. So there has been other sightings up there. So as far as my sighting went, was pretty much in the same area as where Bigfoot was harassing these hunters. Place called Carson Lake. Been up there many times. My sighting, we were up there snowmobiling, and me and my wife, and we would go out to this place called Indian Point. It's the furthest point on the Grand Mesa, which is the largest mesa in the world. It's 10,000 feet up, 200 lakes up there, beautiful area. We would go out to Indian Point. We would have lunch on a nice sunny day. Coming back from Indian Point, I was going pretty fast, and I looked behind me, and my wife was going slow, and she's like a mile behind me. So it's like, okay, better stop and wait for her. So I stopped and drove in a circle and parked on my own tracks. The snow is so deep up there that unless you do that, you'll instantly sink and get stuck. So I went in a circle, parked, turned off the machine, looking around, waiting for my wife. Oh, it's a beautiful day. And I look over in the trees, and here I see Bigfoot running through the trees. He must have been going 20 miles an hour, arms swinging, very large, probably about 10 feet tall. I said, wow, that's a Bigfoot. Up there in the mesa in the winter, it's definitely not a bear. The bears are all hibernating. The elk have dropped down lower in elevation. Snow is so deep up there, the only animal up there is a snowshoe hares. So my wife finally caught up to me. I told her my story, and it happened pretty quick. I didn't have time to pull out my camera. And so I said, I'm going to go over there and see if I can get some pictures of his tracks. And I went to the edge of the trees. You don't dare take your snowmobile into the trees, or you'll instantly sink and get stuck. The snow is so deep and powdery up there. The snow is about 10 feet deep. So I drove around and did a circle again towards the edge of the trees, and stepped off my snowmobile and instantly sunk above my waist. And there's no way am I going to be able to get in there and get pictures of the footprints without snowshoes. So afterwards, I looked on the internet, and lo and behold, same exact places where I saw him is where Carson Lake is where Bigfoot was harassing these hunters. One of my other stories, a year or two later, my wife and I were hiking westward from a place called Mesa Lakes up on the Mesa. And we came across this big open area and kind of a field, and it was kind of surrounded by rocks and trees up above, cliffs up above us. And my wife says to me, "Do you smell that?" And I said, "Yeah, man, that really stinks. It was kind of a smell between a wet dog and a skunk. And I said, I bet that's Bigfoot sitting up in the rocks there, and the wind is just right, and we're smelling him. I spent a lot of time in the mountains in Colorado. I've never smelled anything like that before or since then. So possibly, yes, it was the skunk ape.
Yeah, that's what I hear. They'll stink like that.
Yeah, so those are my stories of seeing and smelling Bigfoot. It definitely was running fast, arm swinging. No doubt about it, 150 yards away maybe, and running through the trees.
Can you describe what the creature looked like?
It was very dark. Looked like really dark hair. Couldn't really see his face because he was running parallel to me, and he was really moving. I mean, he was probably saw him for about running through the trees, probably 15 seconds. Almost like black hair.
Okay, so he was tearing through the woods.
Right, he was tearing through the woods.
And
tearing through. It's all pine trees up there.
Okay, so you could see his trail going through the snow as well.
I could not get close enough to see the trail going through the snow. He was probably about, I'm guessing, maybe 30 yards deep into the trees.
Okay, so you caught him moving through the wood line.
Right.
Okay.
And it was I drove around, and the wood line was probably 100 yards deep before the next field.
And what feeling did you get when you laid eyes on the creature?
I was just totally amazed. It's like, oh my gosh, that is a Bigfoot. And he is running through the trees there, like I say, probably 20 miles an hour. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like definitely a Bigfoot. You can see his arms are swinging, going back and forth in his stride. And he was running on two legs.
Yeah, and you say it'd be impossible for a human just to run through that.
Oh, yeah, through that snow? No way. Like I said, I stepped off my snowmobile and I sank above my waist instantly into the snow. And it's like, no way possible that a human could run like that, even with snowshoes going that fast through the trees.
Yeah. And did you ever return to the area and look around?
Yeah, like I say, we'd been up there multiple times snowmobiling. And that was our trip that we always took. It was out to Indian Point.
Mm-hmm. And nothing else ever happened?
No, never saw nothing else.
Okay. What do you think these creatures are, and how do you think they got here?
Well, from what I've read, it goes back to Indian legends that they've been around for a long time. Possible descendants, the giants of old. I've read about those. Samson is one of them. It's in the Bible that there were giants of the old age. Possibly some kind of, creature, descendant. I don't know which. It's,
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
And you said there's been past encounters at the Grand Mesa area?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Like I said, I looked on the internet, and there have been other sightings, and the Carson Lake Bigfoot story harassing the hunters, pretty much in the same places where I was.
I got
like I say, there was
2 different encounters on my channel of the Grand Mesa area.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not alone.
Yeah, I'll have to send those to you after this phone call, and you'll have to give it a listen.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so
Okay. Well, I
that'd be
appreciate
awesome.
you sharing your story with me. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add to it?
No, that's pretty much my story. This was probably 10 years ago when I saw him up there.
Okay.
So it's been a while, and so yeah, we enjoy going up to the Mesa. It's a it's about an hour drive from where we're at. It's a beautiful area, and got a ski lodge up there, and yeah, lots of outdoor activity. And went up there already this summer, mountain biking. So yeah, it's an interesting place.
Yeah, I'd like to check it out one day and see what it looks like.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty good size Mesa.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So,
All right, sir. Well, I appreciate your time and your willingness to share your encounter.
all right. Well, you have a good day.
Yeah, you too, and you have a wonderful day.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye. All right, sir. Thank you very much for sharing your Sasquatch encounter from the Grand Mesa area of Colorado, and it was certainly a pleasure to take your report. There's been a lot of sightings from that area, and it's pretty remote. The forests out west are a lot bigger than the public land here in the Midwest or on the East Coast. It's a lot bigger out there, and there's a lot of sightings. All right, guys, let's dive into our next interview, and we're calling Dan from New Brunswick, Canada. All right, Dan, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very good. How are you, Miguel?
Oh, pretty good. Not too bad. Dan, if you could you describe your finds that you came across in the New Brunswick area?
Yes, absolutely. This goes back close to 30 years now. This would have been back in 1994. Me and a friend of mine were both bow hunting white-tailed deer. And we were out, for anybody that's in that region, the Fork Stream Road, which was a popular area at the time for a lot of hunters. We had a camper set up, and we had gone up a logging road, which was numbered the 173. And the day before, we actually tried to get up this road, and we spent a couple of hours trying to get the truck freed out. We got it stuck in a major washout. So the following day, we prepped the vehicle, and we continued walking up the road. And as you would, you basically you're scanning the ground. You're looking for any tracks or signs or deer signs. And we came up to bare footprints that were crossing the road. There was about 2 or 3 clear footprints, approximately about a size 5 or 6. And the reason that I know it was that size, my wife has a foot that's about the exact same size. And anyway, it kind of surprised us, and we stopped, and we speculated on what or who would have made those tracks, because these tracks were a little odd because they were not following the road. They were going from one side of the road to the other side of the road in a wooded area where no vehicles had passed. There was no tire track, anything in the area. So my friend was a little passive about it, and I think I did the majority of the talking. And I couldn't come to any conclusion on what it would be. There was clear dermal ridges. It looked exactly like a human footprint, like a child's footprint. And you could see where it clearly went across the road. You could see in the dry section of the road the imprint in the dust. So it was clear that it did cross. So I didn't know what to think. I thought, is there a missing person possibly in the area? I hadn't heard of anything, and we didn't have a camera at that time. It was before I even had a cell phone. And we had a camera, but it was back at the camper. And my hunting partner was a little reluctant and didn't want to go back to get the camera, and he was kind of brushing it off. And anyway, we never really said a whole lot, never talked about it actually after that, which was a little bit odd, which I hear a lot of people do that, right? Once you kind of had that experience, you just kind of put it in the back of your mind and you don't really give it a whole lot of thought. So anyway, this was in 94, and I think it was in 1997 when I actually found the BFRO website, and I started checking out some of the reports. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. And that's when it actually came back to me. And I submitted the report. There was actually none at that time documented from New Brunswick. So within a few weeks, they actually had the encounter posted on the website, which was pretty interesting. So it kind of sparked my interest, and I've been basically pursuing the subject ever since.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do you think possibly the Sasquatch were up in the area hunting the white-tailed deer as well?
Well, it could very well be. It's not something that I actually thought about at the time. I mean, at the time, I believed in the creature, but I never heard of any stories about the East Coast. To me, it was more of a thing about the Pacific Northwest. So for me, it was a major paradigm shift to even think that the creature existed on the East Coast of Canada.
Yeah, I've seen it many times where people will find a few tracks in the middle of a forest road and they just kind of disappear.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like these, they went across, and I actually went in probably about 10 or 15 feet to see if I could even find any hair. And I couldn't see anything. I thought I had found hair, but it turned out it was just moss on one of the branches. But we never went beyond that. We just kind of, a little bit odd. And then we continued with our day, and we ended up bow hunting the rest of the day and for the rest of that week.
Yeah, so there wasn't anything paranormal behind it, like the tracks didn't obviously disappear, but they more or less disappeared into the woods.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. There was one side of the road that was wet, and that's where we seen the impressions. There was about 3 clear prints. And then the rest of the road was a little bit higher and dry, but there was a little bit of dust settlement on the road, and I put my face directly to the ground, and I could see the impression on the dust that you could tell that the tracks continued right across the road. And it wasn't a very wide road. It might have been maybe 7 or 8 feet wide. It was more or less, it's just a logging road is what it was.
Yeah.
But you could tell that the prints crossed the road clearly. Yeah, it's not like somebody would have got out or walked to the side of the road and got into a vehicle, right?
Yeah. And many people will ask, why didn't you take any photos or cast any tracks? Can you explain why?
Well, that was probably the last thing on our mind, was to ever come across something like that. Obviously, we didn't have any casting material. Camera was at the camper. I wanted to go back and get the camera and take pictures. My buddy was reluctant and didn't want to do that. He wanted to continue hunting and get to his tree stand and go on with the day. So after that day, we just never did anything, really. We didn't even report the tracks to the RCMP, which I don't know if we should have really. We just kind of went by, I never heard of anybody missing. And the fact that these tracks were barefoot and not following the road, it kind of didn't make you feel like it was a person, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. I've found many things in the past, and it's just left me scratching my head, and hindsight, I'd wish I'd taken photos or recorded it in some way.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only thing I did, I took a branch and I broke the branch the same length as a footprint, and I put it in my pocket and brought it back with me for a reference for measurement. And that was about the only thing, in that branch has been long gone for years. It was,
Did anything about the track seem non-human? Like, was it a lot wider? Anything that you noticed?
It looked very human. There was no nail mark, no hair. Like, if you looked at the parameter of it, there was like nothing on the side of the track that would indicate that there was fur or hair. No claw marks, and it was an arch foot, which is kind of uncommon when you hear of a lot of the characteristics of tracks that are found today, which have a wide heel. So that was a little different than what you're hearing today, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's a juvenile track, and maybe their foot is not as wide when they're a juvenile. It's really hard to say. I'm definitely not an expert in footprints or tracks.
Yeah, and if you could describe the area that the tracks were coming out of and where they were going to. Were they coming out of deep woods, and were they going into deeper woods, or what it seemed like to you?
Well, it was actually a cut area. It was previously logged, probably 4 or 5 years growth, and it was coming from an open ridge, crossing the road, and it was into more alders, which eventually led to another logging road to the left-hand side of us, which is where we ended up hunting off of that road on the backside. So yeah, it was basically a lot of second growth.
Yeah. And what time of year did you say this happened?
It would have been October, probably close to the second week of October. It would have been the first week of bow hunting season in New Brunswick.
Yeah, and typically, what's the temperature in that area in October?
I would say it's probably close to the freezing mark.
Yeah, so it'd be unusual for someone walking around barefoot.
No, absolutely. And the fact that, somebody would be walking on rocks and broken branches and, it's just, it wouldn't be the smartest thing to do by any means.
Yeah, especially during bow season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I think that pretty well covers your story. And like I said, I knew it was going to be a short one, so I appreciate you taking the time to tell your story.
Oh, no problem at all. Yeah, absolutely. And actually, it's kind of interesting. If I can put a plug in for a Facebook group that was just created within the last year, there's the New Brunswick Bigfoot organization, which is actually holding their first conference in July. It's going to be, I believe, the 8th of July in Sackville, New Brunswick. They're going to have 2 guest speakers. It's free admission to get into the conference. And basically, they're going to open up a forum or a microphone for anybody that actually wants to go up and report any of the encounters that they might have experienced. And they've actually documented, it's not just reports from New Brunswick, it's from all the Atlantic provinces, which would be New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland. And I think they've accumulated over 80 documented cases so far, which is a lot less than you would ever find on the BFRO. And they cover just about every range that you can imagine, every topic on the Sasquatch sighting, like everything from eyewitness sightings from the ground, in the trees, wood knocking, rock throwing, missing time, mind speak, habituation sites, physical contact, even feeling ill after potential infrasound, and also people seeing UFOs in the same area as Sasquatch. So I think it's amazing, like the amount of reports that are actually coming out ever since this group has been created. So I really invite anybody to go check it out and to join if you're interested in the subject.
Okay. Yeah, very good. And where can people find your report on the BFRO? Do you have to be a member, or is it open to the public on the website?
Oh, the BFRO is actually, that's open to the public, and it would be under New Brunswick. I forget the exact encounter number that it's listed.
All right, Dan, thank you very much for reporting your experience and your find. It does make me think that it's a Sasquatch track. The fact that you found it so remote and there wasn't anyone around. It was super cold. I don't see anybody walking around barefooted out in the snow like that, especially in an area where there could be predators or you could freeze to death and no one will ever find you. I've spoken to several Canadians and they say that the people in the area are not open to Sasquatch. It's not like Washington State where everyone believes. And I find that to be unusual just because of how much forest is out there. And I think it shows the control that higher powers have on the people. And people are just not open-minded to things anymore. And they're a lot simpler and they think everything is the way it is. But yeah, that's my little rant there, and hopefully the people take back control before it's too late. We know there's Sasquatch out there. A lot of people don't, and it's okay. but hopefully one day it's all public knowledge and we all find out the truth. If you enjoyed this episode, smash the like button, leave a comment, and if you have a Sasquatch encounter of your own that you would like to share, contact me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. And if you want to help support the channel by purchasing some merchandise, you can find the link in the description down below. But yeah, that's everything for today, everyone. I appreciate every single one of you for watching. Take care and be safe.